Hey, Crystal.
Hey, Mark, how are
How you
you?
doing? I'm doing well. Been doing some research, so I'm not completely cold. You're a pretty amazing person. You've got a very accomplished CV, for lack of a better word. So I have a lot that I want to talk to you about. So just to give you a little bit of background, I'm doing this for exposure. Most of the people that watch this are EO people, entrepreneur type people. That's kind of the clientele that I cater to. I have a split book of business, so to speak. I've got a book in Wisconsin where it's mostly retired folks, and then down here in Chicago, it's more the entrepreneurial type, or that's the type that I engage with. So with all the things you're doing, as an entrepreneur myself, I owned a manufacturing company for 20 years before I became a financial advisor. So, the whole franchise picture and all the different irons you have in the fire would be something that I'd like to talk about a little bit, as well as the pageant. I think that's fascinating. And, you're following one of my dreams to run for state office.
Yeah.
So I've always said someday that's on the agenda. So, I kind of like to touch on all of that stuff, but I don't want to get too far afield on any of that stuff. So I have some questions about what it's like to be a franchise owner and kind of, give people an idea of like a day in the life, right? What is a day in the life of a franchise owner? Now you've had those for quite some time, right?
I have. I'm going on, let's see, I think I started, I've been in the restaurant and the QSR industry, which is quick serve, fast food, for
Okay.
the last 20, I'm 48 now, so, over 20 years. But our most recent last quick serve would be the Krispy Kreme, and I've had that for about 6 years.
Okay. Yeah. So, I find that fascinating. I assume that year one is a lot different than year 6 or year 20 in the ownership of a franchise. So I'm intrigued with that journey and how I would imagine that the goal is ultimately to disengage and have it operate on its own.
Yeah, and by year 6, if you've got a good crew, which is exactly it. So previously to that, we still have them, but we had several yogurt shops. And previous to that, I was in the sandwich biz, so I had
Oh, really?
cheesesteaks.
Okay.
So I moved over to more of a dessert. I got rid of the cheesesteak and kind of kept the yogurt stores and the Krispy Kreme. And I'm hands-on, so I worked the stores, build them from the ground up, worked them, hired everybody, did the
Wow.
training. And now, I've got a great crew where they're pretty self-sufficient. Obviously you're still checking in, you're making sure things are running right.
The cheesecake, was that a franchise as well, or is that something you started?
No, it's a local little franchise up in Washington State.
Okay.
It didn't take off. Like if I had been in charge of that franchise, I definitely would have been more proactive with it because it's great food. I might maybe open one up here in Phoenix just to see how it does. But I think he's only got maybe 12 of them, but they're great. They're
Okay.
great. It's a great concept. But I just wanted to move more into the dessert industry and kind of stick with that.
And what appealed to you about the dessert as opposed to the sandwiches and such? Is it a profitability type thing, or?
The profit margins are better. And I think the other thing along with that is my husband and we have 5 kids total. So I wanted to get into something, living in a small town, I wanted something fun, and our town had neither. It didn't have a Krispy Kreme, didn't have any yogurt stores. So I wanted to bring something there and kind of specialize. Cheesesteaks are great, but it's, anybody that's worked in a restaurant, not to say that Krispy Kreme doesn't have its own set of, the kitchen's tough because it's a bakery.
Sure.
But when you're working in cheesesteaks, it's a tough biz.
From a mental picture, I picture the yogurt and the Krispy Kreme to be a little bit more specialized, whereas opposed to, you don't have to build a sandwich for everybody, right? You're going to get this donut or that donut or this yogurt or whatever the case is. So I see the appeal there. It's somewhat a more simplified business model as well.
Oh, definitely. And I'm a huge fan of the in and out model. Just, you just offer a few things and that's it. It makes things simple and easy. And so I was trying to get away from a larger expanded menu as well.
So how long did you do the hands-on thing before you were able to start breaking away. So I have a lot of friends that have sold their businesses, and they're thinking of what to do next, right? There's a lot of,
Yeah.
what do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, well, franchise is kind of a turnkey model, but there's success stories and then there's failure stories on that. So if you could just shed some light on what that's like to start and what the keys to, the day in the life and the keys of the success or something like that would be
Well,
very interesting.
my biggest advice, honestly, because I've done it a couple different ways now, and I would definitely not recommend doing the way I did it when I bought this company I'm in currently. With my other companies, I built them from the ground up. So literally, I'm a little different for a restaurant person to where I like to own the building also.
Okay.
So I built the building, and then of course I hired everybody. I trained everybody. Basically, I knew how to do everything in the store.
Sure.
And I would highly recommend that to anybody opening any kind of business. You should know how to do everything in your store and be the best at it. I learned that with buying Accusearch, the background training company here. I bought it as an investment piece, and I didn't have industry knowledge, which is I was fortunate enough to meet Michael because he is an expert in this field.
He's been down that
I
road.
just got really, really lucky. But previously to that, I was tied to some staff that I wanted to fire, and I couldn't.
Really?
And I couldn't because I didn't know the field.
You needed them to run the business. Yeah.
I needed them to run the business. So now, obviously, I'm part of the business. You can tell with my messy office here. And I brought in people that I respect and I know also have my same work ethic and are highly intelligent like Michael. So now I'm still part of it and know what's going on. So you never, my biggest thing is you just want to know every single thing in that company. That way, and I was tied to a couple employees I couldn't let go.
That's rough.
That's tough. Tough on the ego.
Yeah, and they know that too, right? So they take liberties with that, I would imagine.
They knew it and they took advantage. And so it was so I can say the one thing, because I've had several businesses, as currently I have several, that's the biggest thing is just get your butt in there and work it. And honestly, you're going to need to work it for a year. You're going to need to be there morning to night for a good year. But after that, I think it's smooth sailing. And then you also know if somebody, you just don't know if an employee is doing a good job unless you know the job anyway, right?
That's true.
And so there's a lot of reasons that you should make sure you work it and know everything. My big one was I didn't like being tied to an employee who knew I was tied to her. So.
Yeah. Well, that certainly makes you beholden and puts them in a driver's seat, so to speak. So.
Well, I was trying. I'm old. I'm 48. I was trying.
You're not old.
I was trying to take a back seat a little. It's an investment. I'll let her run it. I was a pretty cool owner where I just kind of let her have carte blanche. But even that's a mistake. You've got to come in there and just take charge. Was
that your first acquisition then, as opposed to the franchises?
It was. I've always with the franchises, with the yogurt stores, the cheesesteak, all of them. I'd always been part of the ground up. And then I also dabble in commercial construction. So I have
really?
some, I just here and there, but we've got some little strip malls, pads. I prefer pads.
Okay.
We have some pads like in the mall. A pad is.
It's like an outlet for a restaurant, right?
Yeah. So I have some nice little pieces of little properties that I've designed and I have tenants in them, and that was fun. But even then, you're part of the construction phase, you're on there with your general, you're part of it. So this is the first one where it had been around for 30 years. I thought it was a no-brainer. I'll get in here. But at the end of the day, nobody runs your business like you.
Yes.
And so it's important to be here.
Yeah. I'm in acquisition mode right now. I've acquired a financial practice. I'm looking at the acquisition of tax practices. And, it's important to find out what fleas come with that dog. And sometimes they're hidden pretty well. So, you really got to, and if you don't know the business and, I understand taxes enough, but running a tax business, I'd be looking for someone to lean on. And so that's one of the things that makes me hesitate a little bit is like, I don't know if that's the right route, but the multiples on a tax practice are much better than a financial practice. So, it's one of the things that I'm looking at. So what is a day in the life of a mature franchise owner, like somebody that's had it for 6 to 10 years, I would imagine you look at reports and say, cool, I'm going to do something else. That's
Well,
what we dream about, right? As entrepreneurs.
technology is amazing. The restaurant industry has just an amazing platform to where I can look at my phone and I have camera access to all my stores.
Wow.
I can look at my numbers and instantly, you're paying for it. It's expensive, but it's worth it.
Do the
I
franchise
can,
people,
huh?
the franchisees, the franchisors or franchisees, I don't know what they're called. Did the franchises provide that technology, or is that something you have to pay for on your own on the outside?
Well, they provide it, but you're always paying,
Right.
right?
Well, you always
You
pay,
know,
right? But
but
it's
it's nice though. The technology, I mean, most restaurants, the technology is available. You just have to pay for it. But I can see last year's numbers. I can look at the last 5 years. I can see where I am on the hour, where we
wow.
are in numbers. I can look at my labor. I've got my food costs down. So we look at that on a daily. So the daily metrics is literally the great thing is once it gets going, it's a glance. You can spend 10 minutes looking at everything, knowing you're in a good place, and then you're going. I think the biggest inconvenience right now, especially with COVID, is just employees.
That was something I was going to ask you about. I would imagine employees, work ethic seems to be something that kind of drives me crazy when I look at, some of the employees coming up through the ranks. And, I don't know, it's in Washington or on
So
Pacific
several
Northwest? Okay.
several of our operations are in Washington State, which that state's a little different than Arizona. We're pretty open. We've been open for a long time. We had a very short period of being closed.
Sure.
Washington has been closed continually, so it's a little
kind of like
tougher.
Chicago. So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking is Chicago. I think especially with COVID, that's been our biggest obstacle.
You guys, I think the $15 minimum wage is a national thing. I definitely know it's prevalent here. Are you getting hit with that? And how does that affect you as a franchise owner?
Well, it's one of the reasons that I bought Accusearch is I see the writing on the wall and where we're going in the restaurant industry as far as minimum wage and just between minimum wage and at the end of the day, I'm going to have to charge you $3 for a donut,
right?
Just to make
Yes.
profit.
Those were never meant to be jobs to provide for a family of 5. They were, supposed to be interim things, and it's really puts pressure on people like you, and that's why you see the automated kiosks in McDonald's and the businesses like that moving to automation. They're gonna, minimum wage themselves out of a job because technology can do it much more efficiently.
No, not only that. I mean, it really is a big deal, and small business owners, it happens before they realize it, but what's going to happen is small businesses are going to cease to exist. And you are going to be in a situation where we are just stuck with the big corporate America and they can, the Costco's and Walmart's, once they're the only choice, it's going to be scary because they can put a price tag on, the Amazons, whatever they want to charge. So eventually the mom and pops are going to die out because we can't afford, they can't afford the operating costs. And, small business to me is the heart of America.
Great. I couldn't agree
Americans
more.
have forgotten that, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully it slows down a little.
Well, that's a good parlay into your political career here because, like I said, I've always had political aspirations on more the state level than the national level. I've never done anything about it, but it's always been in the back of my mind. Like next stage would be that. Tell me what that's like. It seems like it's a pretty exciting road you're taking there.
Well, it's interesting because it's one of the reasons that I got involved in politics. As a small business owner, I saw there's just the people that are actually making the bills, passing them or not passing them. They have no understanding of business, how it works. Most of those people in office have never even owned a business. They don't even understand a P&L. And so I started getting involved and seeing that a lot of these people, they don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get out there and fight for small business, obviously fight for school choice and just kind of good old fashioned American values, just freedom in general.
Sure.
And so it's a huge reason that I got involved in politics is just right now in Arizona, they passed Prop 208, which now it's on hold and they're fighting it in the courts. but it was just more taxation on small business. So you had businesses leaving and going to Florida and going to other states,
Yeah.
and you know, eventually we won't have small business, and that's, we need to keep our economy going. And so I decided to get in there and try to fight and do something, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I encourage you and any business owner. I know we're busy, but I really encourage you to start getting involved, even on a local level. Become a PC for your LD. Go to your LD meetings, and then just, the more you learn, the more comfortable you get. You realize, wow, these guys are idiots. I can run for office.
So how long's it been since you threw your hat in the ring?
I've been involved in politics, gosh, for the last year,
Okay.
a solid year. And then I started, on a state level. And then I started, obviously, you start making contacts. And I started seeing some people that I really wanted to help. Jim Lehman, he's running against Mark Kelly here. It's about a $50 to $100 million race. That's
Wow.
not crazy. And we're friends, and I ended up becoming director of his America PAC, which is exciting because on a local level, most of the races, my race, most of the smaller races for the state house, state senate here, I'm not sure what they are in Chicago, but they can run you 300,000 to 500,000. A $50 million race.
That's crazy. And that number keeps going up every election, regardless of it trickles down and the numbers keep going up. I mean, some of the school board elections have gotten so much money thrown behind them over the last couple of years. It's been ridiculous.
School board used to be a couple $1,000 run. It's a school board.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you're looking at 20 to 30,000 here on this level. And so I took the opportunity to work for Jim's campaign as well, because just to get that insight on a $100 million campaign is just, and of course, to be around, my philosophy is to always try to be around people that are more successful than you. I want to be the dumbest person in the room, not the smartest. And he is a self-made pretty sure he's a billionaire. He's old school, where he was just a good old farm boy, made all his money himself, wasn't given anything.
Nice.
And got rich off power. So it's interesting just being in that circle as well to see what I'm missing. I'm dying to know his portfolio so I can invest in the same things.
It's interesting. A lot of the EO folks, are you an EO? I know that Mike spoke. At least you're probably familiar with it.
I'm not yet. It's funny because Mike spoke highly of it. I've had a few other people, and to be honest with you, the only reason I haven't gotten involved with EO yet is between all my businesses, the 5 kids, and politics. I'm just ran a little thin right now.
And
that's why I'm so grateful for Mike.
It's really difficult to spread yourself amongst all those things, and
yeah,
and that's where I was going with this. One of the biggest topics amongst EOers when we talk with one another is work-life balance.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've got a pretty challenging work-life balance because you've got a lot of irons in the fire. You've got 5 kids. I mean, that in and of itself is quite an accomplishment to be able to keep all those balls in the air and do them all well. Do you have any secrets to your work-life balance? How do you keep everything in perspective and not drop the ball on anything?
Well, you know what? I surround myself around organized people I can depend on, like Mike. Mike and Don are great. And if you get around, I mean, that's the biggest thing, is just surrounding yourself around people that are smart and smarter than you in some areas,
Oh, for sure. You got to know what you don't know. I tell people that all the time. The most important thing to know is what you don't know, and then be humble enough to find people that are smarter than you and let them do what they do.
Absolutely. Even partnering with Mike and Dawn, I trust them. So if it's great because it's not even, there's so many things that they'll take care of for me that I know I don't have to worry about. So I think that's the biggest thing, is not being a micromanager and just letting people do their job. But you have to make sure you get the right people to do the job.
Yes.
So that's a big one. For me, at least, because when I get idiots in there, I'm micromanaging. I'm doing everything. I'm frustrated. The energy level's bad. I think that's the other thing, and it sounds kind of hokey, but energy is huge. And the biggest advice I can give also, in anybody starting a business or that has a business, is it only takes one snake to bite everybody and spread the venom.
Yeah, it's
And
so true. It doesn't matter what level in the corporation or company that person is at. That is pervasive, and it totally is a cancer inside the organization, and culture and attitude and positive vibe is really important, and that can take down and really pervade the entire psyche of the company. So I agree with you.
Oh God, culture is everything, and we have a lot of respect for culture and attitude here. We hired somebody a few weeks ago, and she was not good at all at the position. Poor little thing, not good. Like, they're like, we need to fire her. She's just, we got it. But her attitude was so great. She broke down crying. I just really want to work. I just really want to work. Is there anything else? And it was like that attitude of wanting to work and being positive was so great. I'm like, let's find her a spot. And so that's what we did. We found her a spot to where she ended up, not everybody's made for all positions.
Sure.
And she's just awesome. So I think we like to reward attitude too. And I think some owners forget to do that. I'm really grateful for a good attitude, but I've had enough crappy ones that that my grateful level has gone up.
How's the labor pool for you? What you guys are doing? I would imagine the majority of your hiring is for Accusearch. So, yeah.
It's probably the same as it is across America. We still have COVID monies that still, you have unemployment from the federal that has been extended out, and people don't want to work.
Yeah.
But we're lucky. We're blessed. I've got a good crew here. They've been here for a long time. We've gotten really lucky. We've had some new hires that are fabulous. But yeah, I mean, you always wish the pool was bigger and better. Yeah. We've gotten pretty lucky.
So I want to just ask you a little bit about the Mrs. Arizona America. I mean, you can't go on your LinkedIn page without seeing that. So tell me a little bit about that. What was that like? How did you get into that? I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Well, it's pretty funny. I was running for office, and I mean, I've always just sat behind worked like you. I'm running for office, and my girlfriend calls me, who's doing the pageants. She's like, you need to run. I had ran one time like 16 years ago, and it was just a hot mess. I'm not a pageant girl. Didn't know what I was doing.
Well, you clearly are, because you won. So, I mean.
Yeah, but it was a fun experience. I tied for the winner. I tied my first time 15 years ago, but it was given to the other girl. So I always, we're competitive, right? Business owners are competitive. So even though I tied and she still got it, I wasn't the winner. And so I think just that inner drive of never being number one.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I've got to run again. I've got to run again. So I've always kind of kept in contact. But now I'm getting older, right? I'm like, shoot, before I know, I'm like 50, And so I'm like, I better get with it. So between kind of coming in runner-up and not first place, and running for office, realizing this might be good to polish me up a little, give me some more speaking experience,
really
and of course,
you out in front of that spotlight, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, when you're running, you're speaking all the time. You're getting in front of groups, and I'm not as polished as maybe I should be. Working in fast food is not a glamorous industry, and so I thought, okay, this will be nice. They can polish me, girl me up a little, and so I did it, and I won. So, which is what I expected, because I'm competitive. But I was competing against girls that were like 20 years younger than me, so I was like, that's awesome. I'm a little worried. So
now you got one more thing on your plate for 2020.
Yeah, and I love Arizona. It's great. I do different events, and it gets me out there. I make contacts, and I will say I've got a lot of respect for those pageant girls. I'm not a pageant girl. It's not something I've done before, but it's a lot of work being pretty. It's a lot of freaking work.
Yeah.
It's too much work, doing it, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm proud to represent Arizona. So
congratulations on your victory, and
thank
all
you.
the things that you're doing. Really, I'm going to keep an eye on your political career. I hope to see that take off. I'm excited to live vicariously through your political accomplishments, but I appreciate the time that you took here.